next question for you is: how does where you from affect your music? Because I'm pretty sure you're from the Flatbush area.
Yeah, from Flatbush. I lived there my whole life.
How does that environment and like growing up in that environment affect your music? Or does it affect it at all?
Actually, that's what I was going to say. Honestly, I would love to say that I felt like it had an effect on me, but I don't necessarily think it does. And it's kind of a tough question because, of course, Flatbush and where we're from, like, you know, around Church Avenue and stuff like that, that's more like Caribbean people, you know. So you hear, you hear the more, I guess, soca or, you know, the old school Bob Marley and just music like that. And so that's what you hear all the time. But then in my household, we more so listen to a lot of like gospel and stuff like that. And my mom was like a big Whitney Houston fan, and so she used to listen to that kind of music. And I was a big Michael Jackson fan, but I don't think I make that type of music or any of those elements. I just feel like I just make music that I like.
Right.
You feel me? So I would love, it would be a cool answer to be like, yeah, you know, this artist was a local artist and, you know, I embody that. But in reality, not really. I just make music that I feel like I could fit on.
Yeah, you just being yourself.
Yeah.
And that honestly is an important component in making music. So I'm happy that was the answer. Let's talk about your wordplay. Like I was quoting some of them lines that you, like my favorite lines and stuff, but you have a lot of lines in your music that even go over my head sometimes, you know? So when it comes to your wordplay, what is the thought process going into though? Like, I wish I can specifically pick some, but you have a lot of fire lines, you know? So when you're writing these lyrics and you're putting together the wordplay, what exactly goes to your mind when you're crafting it?
I feel like the first thing is, does it make sense? That's the first thing.
That the lines don't make sense?
Well, actually, that's further. That's you're right. That's further when I create the line. But when I'm going into it, it's more so of like having a word and what can I build from this word.
Right.
So this is just a random like clarify. I would break it down by its syllables, and then I would see what words rhyme with clarify, and is there a word that I can make out of clarify? So clear, you feel me? I would break that down by its syllables and just come up with something crazy or something like, what's the word that people say, witty or something like that, you feel me? Like, I don't know, it's such a complicated process because sometimes, like in my phone, I have a lot of bars that I have or a lot of lines, but honestly, like, it's just, I try to pick and choose from those, and it's a hard question, you feel me? Like, I don't know, honestly. Like, sometimes I would hear a word and I will come up with something, like, off the spot, and other times it just takes me a long time, but honestly, I just kind of if it makes sense, it makes sense, you know? Honestly, that's a good-ass question.
Yeah, I only ask because there's not really a lot of rappers that I know or I listen to that is able to not only make catchy music, but make catchy music that if you decipher it, it's a lot more than just what you're saying. So it's like, that was a question I had personally for you because me being an artist myself, we're in two different lanes.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like, it would be a lot harder for me to throw in these little things that people could either catch or not catch, but when they listen to it enough, they would catch in the future. You know?
Yeah.
I feel like artists like you are very different.
Appreciate it.
You have a lot more substance to your lyrics. You know what I mean? So I felt like that was a question I personally had to ask you myself because that's a different process when it comes to crafting music.
Yeah, and it's a very complicated process. A lot of times it's frustrating, but as far as like touching on like you saying like I make catchy music, but also I throw in bars here and there, and I just feel like rap is one of those elements that I feel like is slowly dying out in hip hop, you know, and not just rapping, making things rhyme. Like I'm talking about like bars and coming and witty statements and, you know, playing with the wordplays and stuff like that. Like the Kendricks of the world, the J. Cole's, the Drake's, the Eminem's, the Jay-Z's, all of those people, like, they're getting older now, and who are we left with? Like, we're left with people who just trying to make TikTok music and music that's just gonna go viral, has a catchy hook or something. Like, that's cool, but that's why I feel like I'm doing something different, because yeah, I'm able to do that part as well, but I'm also, if you decipher my lyrics, you can see that I'm not just making shit rhyme. I'm making shit, again, make sense. You know, like it always tells a story. Even when I get on features, like I take what you're saying, even if you're saying bullshit, I take a little part of what you're saying and I try to come up with something, you know, something witty or something like that, where people come back and be like, oh, this nigga was spitting for real. Like, it's not easy. It's not, because it's a lot of pressure on yourself, because that's why it's hard for me to freestyle, or not necessarily freestyle, but it's hard for me to just make things rhyme or just make something catchy like that, because it's just like I'm trying to focus on how can I make where I fit both brackets, the people who just enjoy listening to music, but also the people who are who make YouTube videos and breaking down the bars. I want to fit into that category as well. So I put a lot of pressure on myself.
My moral compass is pointing in so many directions. When I look north, I follow a star that leads to perfection. But my complexion is southern, I think that's a weapon. I start to question them twisted.